What would you do if you woke up in a hospital and found out your entire archaeology team had vanished without a trace? Ethan survived, but did he really come back alone? I am Dr. Ethan Black, an archaeologist specializing in the study of ancient Eastern civilizations. For over 2 decades, I have been pursuing the traces of lost pharaohs, figures erased from all official records of ancient Egypt. Then, last October, I received a strange handwritten letter with no sender's address, only a red wax seal stamped with an open eye. The letter contained a faded copy of a map, a land between the Sahara Desert, never officially surveyed. Beneath the map was an Arabic inscription written in dry blood. The tomb of the cursed, do not search. I couldn't resist. Partly out of curiosity, partly due to an obsession with buried history, I sent a request for permission to the Egyptian government. 2 months later, I was granted archaeological permission. The excavation team consisted of 5 people. Me, anthropologist Liz Kina, photographer and mechanic Ramon Soto, ancient language translator Joseph Choi, and my medical doctor and close friend Marcus Hale. On the first day we set foot in the archaeological region, Liz began to exhibit strange behavior. She said she had dreamt the night before of thousands of eyes opening from the sand, watching her. I assumed it was exhaustion and the change in climate. The excavation site lay deep within a sand canyon. We set up camp and used seismic equipment to scan underground. No response for the first 3 days. But on the 4th night, a large sandstorm suddenly arose. In the midst of the swirling dust, I saw something rise from the sand. A black stone structure, shaped like a triangle protruding about a meter. After 4 hours of frantic digging, we discovered the entrance to a pyramid-like structure. The strange thing was, it didn't appear in any historical documents or maps. There were no inscriptions on the stone surface. It was silent, cold, and seemed to be waiting. Ramon set up an infrared camera. When we replayed the first video, we froze. There was a shadow standing at the entrance, but none of us had seen it when we filmed. Despite the unease, I decided to enter, not for science, but for a strange compulsion, as if the pyramid were calling my name. The moment we stepped through the threshold, the air thickened. A coldness enveloped us, starkly different from the scorching heat outside. The flashlight flickered, its beam unable to shine more than a few meters, as though something was absorbing it. The first hallway descended deep, narrow, and low. On the rock walls were symbols never before recorded in any known hieroglyphic system. Joseph stared at them, muttering. These characters don't seem to be from the Egyptians. They look like they were created by a different civilization, one that is more ancient. We descended step by step, each one heavier. Suddenly, Liz froze, trembling. She said she heard heavy breathing in the darkness. Ramon switched on a wide beam, but there was nothing except stone and dust. We came to a circular room with a high-voltage ceiling, housing 13 statues, all wearing head coverings, faces missing. In the center of the room was a stone pedestal with a black box, cold as ice, sealed with red wax. Marcus moved closer and touched the box and collapsed. He was unconscious for 5 minutes. When he awoke, he said he had seen another world, filled with blood and eyeless creatures. I hesitated but was once again compelled to open the box. Inside, there was nothing, but the floor began to tremble gently. A crack appeared, revealing a spiraling staircase descending further. We split into two groups. Ramon and Joseph stayed behind to record, while Marcus, Liz, and I descended. Each step was etched with images of torture, blood, and sacrificial rites. There were images depicting the future, modern warfare, planes, nuclear bombs, all engraved thousands of years ago. At the bottom, a stone door opened before us. Behind it was a pitch-black hall. No echoes, no wind, no life. In the center of the hall was a black glass sarcophagus. Inside was a shriveled corpse, still wearing a pharaoh's crown, but with no face. The face had been stripped away, revealing only dry flesh and a gaping grin. On the forehead of the mummy was the third eye, a glowing purple-pink gem. Liz whispered shakily, "No, this is not a pharaoh. It's older, like an entity hidden from history." At that moment, Ramon shouted through the radio, "Joseph is gone. Only bloodstains lead into the entrance." We immediately turned back. But the hallway had changed direction. The walls were shifting, leading us into a maze. We had no sense of direction. Marcus whispered that he saw himself die in a stone crevice. Liz cried, repeatedly saying she heard her mother calling her. I began to panic. We passed through rooms that constantly shifted. At times, it was the hallway of my childhood school. Other times, a cold mortuary room filled with corpses. Each of us was drawn into a different reality, as if the pyramid were reading our minds and haunting our thoughts. We could only keep each other tethered by a rope tied around our waists. But at one turn, Liz disappeared. The rope had been cut. Laughter echoed from everywhere. Finally, only Marcus and I remained. We came to a room with a glass dome ceiling, revealing the starry sky. On the ceiling was a map of the constellations, but one constellation was unfamiliar. It didn't belong to any human astronomical system. In the center of the room was a stone slab with an inscription, "You have come to me. And now you are part of me." Marcus began to bleed from his nose. His eyes turned black, as if covered by a layer of sinister mist. But the voice that came from his mouth was no longer Marcus's. It was deep, hoarse, and reverberated as if hundreds of people were speaking at once. "I am awakening, and this vessel will be the beginning." I froze. Marcus's face contorted, and a non-human grin appeared. In that instant, I understood. This was no longer Marcus. It was another entity borrowing my friend's body. I stepped back, terrified, calling his name in vain. Marcus, or whatever was in him, stepped closer. In an instant, I grabbed the flashlight and struck him on the forehead. Blood splattered, but instead of red, it was a thick black liquid, bubbling and frothing. I ran madly through the twisting hallways, past walls that kept changing shape through my own fear. And then I woke up in the archaeological tent in the middle of the night. No one else was there. No sign of the pyramid ever existing. Only a piece of black stone in my hand, engraved with the open eye. Although I woke up in the tent, the coldness still clung to me. My hands still gripped the black stone, as if it were absorbing the heat from my body. I looked around. Everything had changed. It was no longer the normal excavation camp. The space around me was hazy, as if I hadn't left the pyramid. I tried to stand, but my steps felt heavy, as if an invisible force was pulling me back. I looked down at my hand. The black stone was still there. And then I saw it. it began to glow. A faint red light emanated from the stone, making me feel nauseous. A strange sound began to echo in my head, as if someone was calling my name from afar. I turned round and saw a figure standing outside the tent, but I couldn't tell who it was. I stepped outside, my feet seemingly stuck in the sand. The night sky was no longer the sky I had seen before entering the pyramid. It resembled another dimension, dark and oppressive. The figure moved closer, and I realized it was Liz. But she wasn't the Liz I knew. She wasn't the girl who had explored the pyramid with me. Her face was wrinkled, her skin pale like a corpse. Her eyes emitted a red glow, just like the eye on the stone I was holding. And her voice, it was no longer Liz's voice. "You've awakened me," the voice said, cold and ominous. "Now, you will be a part of me." I stood frozen, unable to speak. All I could do was stare at Liz, or whatever was masquerading as her, as it moved closer. My mind spun. Another wave of confusion and terror washed over me. I couldn't escape, couldn't resist. And then it laughed. A grotesque, shattered laugh echoing across the night sky as if thousands of people were laughing at once. "We shall have a new kingdom," the shadow whispered, "the kingdom of eternal souls." The fear was suffocating, making it impossible to breathe. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I stared at Liz, or whatever had taken her form, as its eyes widened. A third eye on its forehead began to glow. That eye, fiery red like flames, stared straight at me, making me feel like I was being sucked into an endless black hole. My head spun, and I felt a force tightening around my mind, preventing me from thinking. Only panic remained. Something was changing in the space around me. The stone in my hand grew heavier, almost too heavy to hold. A laugh echoed from the mouth of Liz, but it wasn't her voice anymore. It was something else, cold and terrifying. It was a different sound, cold and terrifying, as if someone was hissing through clenched teeth. I tried to look around, searching for an escape, but the shadows seemed to be closing in on me. "You can't escape," the voice echoed, and I realized that it wasn't just Liz, but thousands of other things were present in the darkness. "You've awakened me. You're no longer yourself." At that moment, I couldn't bear it anymore. My body was exhausted, but I still tried to focus. I knew one thing. If I didn't keep trying to escape this dark shadow, I would never get out. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt myself sinking deeper into that darkness. A sudden, powerful force pulled me forward, as if an invisible hand was pushing me toward Liz, or something impersonating her. Its eyes widened even more, the third eye now occupying its entire face, its red light growing intense, as if it wanted to burn everything in sight. And I realized it wasn't just Liz that was distorted. All the people in the archaeological team, my friends, had been replaced by strange, inhuman creatures. They stood there, silent, like soulless ghosts, their gazes no longer human. I realized that what was happening wasn't just physical transformation, it was soul possession, a process that the pyramid had carried out a long time ago. I remembered the bizarre images I had seen on the first night at the archaeological site. The cracks on the stone walls, the ancient symbols, and especially the nightmares that I couldn't explain. The black stone in my hand was the key, and now it was leading me into another world. The world where the shadow of the pyramid had awakened. At this moment, no one can help you, the voice echoed again. You will become a part of me, forever. A chilling sensation filled my body, paralyzing me, making it impossible for me to move or breathe. I felt myself losing control, everything starting to blur, as if I was sinking into an endless abyss. The space around me spun, and the laughter of Liz merged with strange sounds I couldn't differentiate. Invisible hands seemed to reach out to me, pulling me into eternal darkness. And then, everything suddenly went silent. I opened my eyes. No more darkness. No more eerie laughter. Only a bright room where faint light shone through the window. My first feeling was that I couldn't remember where I was or why I was lying on the bed. My head throbbed like a hammer, a sharp pain piercing through every cell in my body. I tried to sit up, but my body seemed paralyzed, unresponsive to my command. "He's awake!" A voice came from somewhere near me. I turned around and saw a woman in a white blouse, a doctor. She looked at me with a concerned expression. "You're awake. You scared us, Ethan. You fainted after returning from the archaeological trip. Thankfully, the doctors got you to the hospital in time." She continued, her voice soft but still tinged with an undeniable worry. I tried to recall, but my mind was a blur. The memories of the pyramid, the darkness, the third eye, all of it seemed like a vague nightmare, as if it weren't real. That feeling of death, the feeling of being pulled into another world, was fading. But I couldn't shake it from my mind. "What happened?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. "About the archaeological trip." The doctor looked at me with surprise. "You don't remember? You went on an archaeological trip to Egypt with your team, then suddenly passed out. We can't explain why. The doctors did everything to bring you back." I closed my eyes, trying to think, but everything was cloudy, like it was all just a long dream. I looked down at my hand, where the black stone I had been holding was gone. All that was left was emptiness. But I felt something was wrong. A strange urge, as if something had changed inside me. A premonition or a broken memory was lingering in my mind. "Please," I said, my voice raspy, "tell me, where is my archaeological team?" The doctor was silent for a moment before replying, "We can't find anyone. Your team is missing. There was no one there when we arrived. Only you, unconscious. We can't understand what happened." I felt my blood freeze. The memories of the pyramid, of the strange things underground, of the creatures taking over our bodies, all rushed back to my mind like a powerful wave. But when I opened my mouth to speak, a headache hit me again, making me fall back, unable to say anything further. I woke up again. Everything was still the cold hospital room, but this time there was a strange feeling. It seemed like I wasn't myself. The memories kept intertwining, images of the pyramid, that strange eye, images I couldn't explain, all blending together. And one question kept ringing in my mind, never ceasing. What is real? What is fake? And who have I really become? The doctor walked in again, looking at me intently. "Are you okay? Do you feel anything strange?" I looked out the window, where the sky was still bright, but in my heart it was dark, trapped in a feeling that I was imprisoned in something deep and ominous. That feeling haunted me, as if an invisible figure was watching every step I took. My eyes suddenly stopped at the clock on the wall, the mind hand moving slowly. But then I noticed something odd. The second hand had stopped. It was stuck, exactly at 12. A cold sensation enveloped me, and a gentle breeze suddenly blew through the window, causing the curtains to flutter lightly. But there was no wind outside the window. I turned to look at the doctor. Her gaze focused on me with concern, but in her eyes I sensed something unusual, doubt, an unspoken question. Then I heard a whisper, not from anyone in the room, but from somewhere far away, from the deep recesses of my body. A faint, eerie voice, as if calling me, telling me to return to it. My heart raced, and I couldn't stop thinking about that feeling, that there was someone waiting for me, and one day it would awaken.